How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Liberty Bowl. So, as we are on the brink of World War III, right? So I'm sure if they were to come out today and do a whole another doomsday clock reveal, we're probably about 30 seconds to midnight right now, right? So things keep escalating over there in with Russia and Ukraine. Biden was just over there the other day, just went ahead and gave a surprise visit and dropped off another $500 million to Zelensky, and essentially, this war is not showing any signs of stopping. In fact, it's showing signs of getting worse. Nations like China are starting to show more militaristic support for Russia in their efforts to go ahead and annex parts of Ukraine. And Joe Biden is basically over there continuing to just pass out these blank checks like they're candy, right? So we're gonna go ahead and check out some clips from the old Trumpster. We're gonna check out some shit from Joe Biden's. We're gonna check out the old Hitler's Peace Putin himself, and we're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about what is going on in World War III land right now. But before we get into that, let's get into this. Let's go.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
We're losing our democracy!
More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Wake up!
Before we get into that, let's get into this.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. For decades, we've had the very same people, such as Victoria Nuland and many others just like her, obsessed with pushing Ukraine toward NATO, not to mention the State Department support for uprisings in Ukraine. These people have been seeking confrontation for a long time, much like the case in Iraq and other parts of the world, and now we're teetering on the brink of World War III. And a lot of people don't see it, but I see it, and I've been right about a lot of things. They all say Trump's been right about everything.
And there's that old Donald Trump we know and love.
None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades. And that includes President Biden, whose own people said he's never made a good decision when it comes to looking at other countries and looking at wars. We have to replace them with people who support American interests. Over our 4 years in the White House, we made incredible progress in putting the America Last contingent aside and bringing the world to peace.
All right, so he basically starts off here by explaining the issue with Washington and their rather unsavory relationship with the military-industrial complex, okay? So basically, wars are profitable. If you're not aware of that, wars are profitable. It also creates a genuine sort of unity within the country. At least it's supposed to. As we're seeing right now, it's too blatantly obvious of like a money laundering scheme, that type of shit for the majority of the country to get behind. And at the same time, this really doesn't have anything to do with us. So we're not really kind of unifying behind the Biden administration and their efforts over there in Ukraine, right? So the reason that Donald Trump has not gotten us into any sort of, new conflicts, anything like that, is basically because Donald Trump was not part of the in party. Donald Trump was not supposed to happen. He's basically the geopolitical anomaly that was never supposed to take place. He was basically a joke candidate. And he ended up getting in there and exposing a lot of the bullshit that goes on, like this, right? So let's go ahead and check out what Biden's current plan is, which, as you already know, it's basically full steam ahead. But let's go ahead and check out some of these clips from the old Biden's administration in his surprise trip to Ukraine. Right, surprise! He's brought $500 million, $500 million, and he's just basically giving it over there to fucking Zelensky. Meanwhile, over here in America, we have over there in East Palestine the horrible chemical spill, and basically he's doing nothing about it. FEMA has basically denied them funds, and instead Joe Biden decides to go over there and play fucking big old war hero and shit over there, chest puff over there in Ukraine, and basically give more of your tax dollars to Zelensky.
А що ти мені там за відео скидував?
All right, so we got Joe Biden here walking through, Kiev with Zelensky. Okay, so those air raid sirens that you're hearing in the back, that's all fake. That's all political theater, right? So there was a, I don't have the video, but there was a news reporter that basically said that they've been there for weeks, and this is the first time that they've heard an air raid siren in Kiev for weeks now, right? Basically, it's all political theater. So Joe Biden actually made a call to Vladimir Putin to let him know basically ahead of time that he is going to be doing a surprise visit to Kiev, right? So the reason for that is obviously, so that a stray missile or something like that does not happen to go blow up the president of the United States, because that would be very, very bad for Russia, or basically the whole world, right? The shit would essentially hit the fan.
Let there be no doubt. The commitment of the United States to our NATO alliance and Article 5 is rock solid.
All right, so let's make something really clear really quickly, right? He is about to say the words NATO ally quite a bit here, right? So let's make something very clear. Ukraine is not a member of NATO, right? That is actually one of the main, contributing factors to Putin deciding to actually invade Ukraine in the first place, is because of their potential NATO membership. Is basically Russia does not want NATO missiles and military bases right at their front gates.
And every member of NATO knows it. And Russia knows it as well. An attack against one is an attack against all. It's a sacred oath. Sacred oath to defend every inch of NATO territory.
All right, so if that weren't escalation enough, this next clip is actually from a couple of days ago, and it is actually Kamala Harris, our vice president, basically declaring Russia and Putin as war criminals, and basically saying that what they're doing over there in Ukraine is committing crimes against humanity. So if that is not any sort of escalation, then I don't know what is, right? These motherfuckers want World War III to happen. They're fucking sick, twisted individuals. Make no mistake of that.
And there is no doubt these are crimes against humanity. The United States has formally determined that Russia has committed crimes against humanity. And I say to all those who have perpetrated these crimes, and to their superiors who are complicit in these crimes, you will be held to account. In the face of these indisputable facts, to all of us here in Munich, let us renew our commitment to accountability. Let us renew our commitment to the rule of law.
All right, so essentially, at this point, Vladimir Putin has basically vowed that he is not going to give up this fight. Basically, he is going to get that region of Ukraine for Russia. If at this point, I don't know, maybe he's going to go for all of Ukraine. But either way, he has vowed that he is willing to use nuclear weapons if it comes to it. And basically, Joe Biden is going out here and saying the same thing. Again, this has nothing to do with the United States. Ukraine is not a NATO ally, right? This is basically a land dispute between, former nations, basically between the former Soviet Union.
Appetites of the autocrat cannot be appeased. They must be opposed. Autocrats only understand one word: no, no, no. No, you will not take my country.
Your country? Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Yeah. Your money laundering scheme, right?
No, you will not take my freedom. No, you will not take my future. And I'll repeat tonight what I said last year in the same place. A dictator bent on rebuilding an empire will never be able to ease the people's love of liberty. Brutality will never grind down the will of the free. And Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia. Never.
If you honestly had no idea, how corrupt Joe Biden and his family actually is, or if you actually had, no idea that basically all of this is just really needless escalation in a completely unjustified war, then this speech right here might actually sound somewhat inspiring, right? I mean, it's probably going to, either way, it's probably going to end up going down in, history books. We're probably going to end up seeing it, 30 years, 40 years down the line on the, History Channel or some sort of documentary, some shit like that, right? But let's go ahead and switch gears and let's go ahead and see what old Vladimir Putin has to say about the West.
Лгут постоянно, извращают исторические факты, не прекращают нападки на нашу культуру, на русскую православную церковь, другие традиционные религиозные организации нашей страны. Посмотрите, что они делают со своими собственными народами. Разрушение семьи, культурной и национальной идентичности, извращение, издевательства над детьми вплоть до педофилии объявляются нормой их жизни. А священнослужители, священников принуждают совершать однополые браки.
All right, so sorry if you're only listening on audio, but he basically is giving a speech and he's talking about, what the West has basically been doing to Russian culture, right? So he's saying that, they subvert historical facts. They basically attack, Russian Orthodox life. They basically are attacking Russian churches. And he talks about the general normalization of perversion here in America, the perversion and sexualization of children, basically forcing churches to perform same-sex marriages, all that type of stuff. And essentially it's the whole anti-woke perspective, right? That's something that really resonates with a lot of us here in America, right? Because a lot of us don't really agree with that as well. When it comes to things like same-sex marriage, shit like that, I don't give a shit. If you want to have your own civil union and you have that all be recognized by the government and everyone's happy and blah blah blah, fine. But when it comes to the government having to step in and force churches to basically throw away thousands and thousands of years of their religious and spiritual beliefs in order to validate you and your partner's life choices, that's basically when it becomes the complete degradation of society. And that is what Putin is essentially saying that this whole war is really all about.
С ними пускай что то и делают. Что здесь хочется сказать? Взрослые люди имеют право жить как хотят. Мы к этому так и относились в России и всегда к этому будем так относиться. Никто в частную жизнь не вторгается, и мы не собираемся этого делать. Но хочется им сказать, посмотрите, извините меня, священные писания, главные книги всех других мировых религий. Там все сказано, в том числе то, что семья – это союз мужчины и женщины.
Okay, so whether or not, in Russia that's actually true, that they don't try to pry into people's personal lives, whatever, consenting adults, all that type of shit, I don't know if that's actually true or not. I've never been to Russia. I don't plan on actually going, so either way I don't actually really even care to looking into it. But he goes on to basically say that if you look at the holy scriptures of basically any religion, throughout history, they all basically say the same thing, that a marriage and a family is between a man and a woman, right? A family is basically man, woman, child. It's the the Holy Trinity type thing, right? And that is absolutely true. That is basically what keeps. I mean, it's weird that we have to actually explain this nowadays, that a man and a woman make a child, but that's what it's come to here in America, right? That's what basically this woke ideology and basically this pseudo intellectualism and these attacks on basically everything that you've ever known throughout your entire life. It's basically all complete brainwashing. It's basically brainwash society, make everybody some soft, fucking smooth brained people because they're easier to control that way, right?
Но и эти священные тексты подвергаются сейчас сомнению. Но вот, как стало известно, англиканская церковь, например, планирует, правда, пока только еще, рассмотреть идею гендерно-нейтрального Бога. Что скажешь? Прости, Господи, не ведают, что творят. Миллионы людей на Западе понимают, что их ведут к настоящей духовной катастрофе. Элиты, прямо надо сказать, просто сходят с ума, и это, похоже, уже не лечится. Но это их проблемы, как я уже сказал, а мы обязаны защитить наших детей. И мы сделаем это, защитим наших детей от деградации и вырождения.
All right. That's some pretty hardcore shit to say right there, right? If I can forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. That's some pretty intense shit, right? So he also goes on to talk about protecting the children, right? Protecting the children from this degradation, from this debauchery, from all this woke Western society bullshit that's going on. And as much as I hate to be Putin fucking shill and all that, he's actually correct. Whether or not this is just some sort of a piece of propaganda to basically get some of the more sensible people on here in the West to kind of agree with Putin, I don't know, but either way, everything that he basically says is everything that a lot of us here in the United States are actually fighting. And he does actually say that there are some people that are aware that the West is leading the people into spiritual, I forget what word he actually used, but basically leading us to spiritual degradation, right? And that's absolutely correct. So as you guys can kind of see, I'm not exactly the most Christian or the most orthodox type person in the world, but I am very spiritual in many ways. I study a lot of different occult texts. I've studied many different religious texts from all throughout history, right? It's always been something that's been extremely fascinating to me, right? I've always come at it from a viewpoint of a skeptic, but at the same time, the one of the realizations that I did come to, from being a hardcore atheist for a long time in my life, is it just occurred to me, like, okay, so if God doesn't exist and all this and that type stuff, right? Well, if some sort of God or some sort of natural order does not exist in the world, right? Why would people have believed that it has for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years? And all of a sudden, I'm the first person to realize everybody's been wrong forever. Yes, that's the kind of realization that I ended up coming to, and then that's what really kind of prompted me to go ahead and take a second look into it, right? So I basically came to the realization, well, if people have been studying this stuff for tens of thousands of years, and basically people have been living like this for tens of thousands of years, and this is the way that the human civilization has been built forever, there's got to be something to it, right? So of course, I started looking into it, and of course, I get to the point where I realize that it's all basically positive energy. It's pure positivity. It's basically purity. It's the natural order of the universe. It's the way that things actually work. Like we say, the basicest part of it is man and a woman come together, create a child, right? So that is the ideological and the spiritual degradation that we are facing here in America right now. And that is what Putin is trying to keep away from his country. I could understand that, as I'm sure a majority of us can, right? At the same time, we know that as much as we would like to say that, he's justified. He's doing this for the betterment of humanity, or what have you, right? We are not allowed to say that, right? Basically, we are stuck in, as much as we disagree with everything going on here in America right now, this is still our country, right? If, Vladimir Putin were to go ahead and strike Joe Biden over there, when he was visiting Kiev the other day, we would still all come together and rally, left, right, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, doesn't matter. We would all come together and basically, that either way, that's our leader. That's a symbolic, message that you're sending to the entire nation of the United States if something like that were to happen, right? And that is basically what we are stuck with here in America. We may not agree with it, we may not support it, we may not be for it, but either way, this is our country. This, when they talk about, the degradation of the Western world, and they basically talk about, the end of the liberal world order, as much as you hate the idea of a liberal world order, you have to also realize that's us. I mean, that's our world order. That is us. We are basically the leaders of the free world. And when all of these, other nations basically come together, and I'll be honest, they make absolute perfect fucking sense. And they basically say that this whole liberal world order, this whole woke ideology needs to be stopped. It's really hard to, back your own people in that situation, right? And that's also the issue that the people on the left-hand side are starting to face right now, right? They're basically, the woke cult is starting to eat itself, right? So maybe you are a Democrat because you believe in higher pay for women or something like that. Maybe you believe in the pay gap, the gender inequality or something like that. Maybe you're a Democrat because you believe that black people get singled out by cops at a disproportionate rate to other races. What have you, whatever reason it may be. Well, now it has come to the point where basically you can believe in all that, but if you don't also agree that men can be women, if you don't also agree that men should be allowed to as long as they dress up and say that they're a woman, that they should be able to compete in women's sports, that they should be able to use women's restrooms, that they should be able to be locked up in women's prisons. If you don't agree with the genital mutilation of children, if you don't agree with the sexual indoctrination of children at very young ages, if you don't agree with all of that, well, then you're not with us, right? So essentially, they are starting to eat themselves, and that is basically what is happening with the whole Western ideology, right? We want to back our country. We want to stand up for freedom, for liberty, right? But it's hard to do so when you don't agree with the ideology of your own, people anymore. So either way, that's about all I got for you guys, man. I appreciate you stopping by, hanging out, smoking with me, and checking out all these clips. Don't forget to like if you guys are not already subscribed. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all of you guys. Like, subscribe, share. Fuck off.